Good day, everybody. This is Simon Roche of Suidlanders coming to you from Moscow. I've been sent here by Mr. Miller to accept, or to realize, I suppose might be the right word, an invitation to visit Russia. We were initially asked to come here on the basis of the prospect of Afrikaner Boers moving to Russia. We made it clear that we're not in that business. We don't believe in it. We wish for our people to remain, to stand their ground in South Africa, come what may, for the time that lies ahead of us. But they prevailed upon us. I was contacted by a member of parliament, Kuznetsov, and Dmitry and Yevgeny. So we ended up getting 3 sets of invitations, and we thought, well, why not? We'll go, but not to promote the immigration of South African farmers to Russia, but to spread the good word and see what we can achieve. And we're being hosted by Dmitry Balkovsky. He's on YouTube, by the way. I think it's called Russia Move is his channel, Russia Move. And this letter from Russia, as we've called this series, is about first impressions. Now, I must make it very clear, these are first impressions. So number one, they're bound to be imperfect. And number two, they're bound to be superficial and intuitive. They're not very well informed. They're more a matter of intuition and instinct and all of that kind of perhaps sometimes unreliable stuff. But they're worth talking about, I think. My first impressions of Russia are very, very good. It's a wonderful place. It's very awkward to operate here because of the language. And that's not helped by the alphabet, the Cyrillic alphabet, the alphabet that was devised by the 2 monks, the Greek Orthodox monks, Methodius and Kirill, in, I believe, the 800s, when they came to spread the gospel of our Lord and Savior to the then heathens of Russia, as Europe was then heathen, well, much of it, for writing down the Gospels, an alphabet that was suited to the Slavic languages, the Slavic tongue. It's not helped by the fact that internet is not terrific. It's not helped by the fact that as a foreigner, you may only get a 2-week telephone card. It's valid only for 2 weeks, that only has 12 gig of data on it and cannot be renewed. Believe it or not, that's the rule. I couldn't believe it when the guy first told me, and I was with a professor, a famous Italian professor of paleontology, who worked and lectured in Siberia. So that's the region of Russia that is east of the Ural Hills. They're not mountains. The Ural Hills, that is Siberia. All of Russia east of the Ural Hills. For 25 years, Professor Emmanuel. And so I was effectively with a local. And I listened to this phone man mention the restrictions, describe the restrictions, and I was frankly incredulous. What a load of nonsense. That can't be true. And he pulled out the paper in English of the government notice, gospel truth. The only way to get a better deal is you have to go to the bank, do a biometric scan. You've got to go to a certain agency and do an application in person. Excuse me. And then online, you have to do another application. So it's a 3-step laborious process, 2 of the steps being in person. And that's not to say that you will automatically get. It's an application. So being here is not a barrel of laughs. It's not helped also by the low number of English speakers in Russia. I'm by no means one of those people who believes that if I visit, say, Ethiopia or Kazakhstan, there should be pizza shops and hamburger joints. That when I go to other countries, it should be on my terms. Where are the hamburgers? Where's the fast food? Why don't they speak English? They should speak English. By no means am I saying that. I am saying, however, that it means that you can't ask for directions. You can't. It's just a very, very low percentage of people that speaks English here. And, on the street, I'm talking about average. But the people are very nice people. The place is clean, spotlessly clean. I'm staying in a hotel. I'll do a brief video of the room. I'll tidy it up a little bit and make a video for you to see, or I might not, or I might not. I'm staying in a hotel that is on the ground floor of one of those famous communist blocks of flats, commie blocks they call them. It's a very modest room. There's nothing smart about it. It's costing me $80 a day, and that's more than we had in our budget. We were given guidelines by our inviters, but they were incorrect. Simple as that. You can't readily get rooms for $10 a day, or 20 or 25 or 30. It's costing $80 a day, and that's way, way, way out of our budget. They told us to budget $400 for a week stay. So $400 would give you all of the food and the transport and the accommodation you need. And clearly at $80 a day, 7 8 of 56, that's $560 for a week, just in accommodation. Plus food, you're probably looking at 10, 12, maybe $15 a day. Not quite. Times 7, that's about $100. So you're on $660 plus transport. You probably need $800 a week to stay frugally in Moscow. Apparently, the rest of the country is much cheaper, apart from St. Petersburg. Petersburg is apparently on par with Moscow when it comes to expensiveness. We'll manage one way or the other. But my original point was a very modest room is going to set you back $80. Apparently, there are cheaper places, but to find them is another story. People talk about them, but nobody seems to know where they are. Or if you press the subject, somebody will say, well, actually, it's full of Kazakhis or Uzbekis or Tajikis or Turkmenis, and there's no way that you can go there. Absolutely out of the question. Gangsters, you'll get stabbed and so on. What else can I say? I'll tell you a little anecdote just to substantiate this thing of nobody speaking Russian. The other night I caught a taxi, and my friend helped me to book it. Dmitry Balkovsky, our host. Look up Russia Move on YouTube. He booked it, and taxi came, jumped in the taxi, drove. 35 minutes later, I knew that we were lost, but it wasn't worth holding a conversation with the guy. He's no English. So I just let things play out. I didn't think I was being abducted. I'm certainly not worth it. And he was a puny little guy. I don't think, he would have tried to abduct me. He would have expected to get a thrashing. Not that I'm a great big boxing champion or something, but he was a puny little guy. So I didn't panic. And eventually he said he's got no address. I said, but there's an address from the booking. He said he's got no address. And I could not help him. He endeavored to hold a conversation, but with no English and me having no Russian. What am I going to do? I can do nothing for you. So I thought if I raise my voice and sound stern, I'll intimidate him. I'll bully him, because what he was attempting to do was, God bless him, I don't mean to be unkind, but it was idiotic. Hoping that a 5-minute conversation in which neither side understood the other side's words at all was somehow better than a 30-second conversation in which nobody understood anything was just dumb. So I sort of yelled at him, not terribly, but just enough to get him to back down from this dumb thing of trying to convince me to chat with him about this crisis that he's having. And I made it his problem, and so he shut up and he mucked around on his phone, and then he managed to phone our friend who'd made the booking, and the friend shouted at him too. I mean, what kind of an idiot drives? He drove for 35 minutes in the wrong direction. I suspected what his reasoning was I don't know the direction. I am too shy to say something at the beginning of the drive, so I'll just kick the can down the road for now, and I'll drive towards the smartest part of Moscow. Because this man in his, obviously I'm traveling overseas, I'm representing Suidlanders, I'm not a wealthy man, I don't have that really fancy clothes, but I was dressed as much to the nines as I could be dressed to the nines for obvious reasons. You're overseas, you're representing Suidlanders, you're dealing with very, very, very serious people. You know, this guy's leather jacket is whatever, suggests that he's staying at the Ramada or the Marriott or the Hilton. I'll just drive in that direction, 35 minutes in the wrong direction. So my point being that it is very awkward to operate in Russia, particularly with the awful internet that they have. And that's notwithstanding internet being cut off by the government on the 9th of May, so that the Kazakhstanis or the Turkmenistanis didn't bomb the 9th of May parade on behalf of Ukraine. It is very difficult. But that aside, clean, nice, polite. Oh, I tell you what, we'll see how things pan out. You know, I might end up changing my opinion, but for now, if I was 30 years younger, given how South Africa is, and given how easily I get on with these people. You know, we had a braai the other night that my welcoming was a braai, and the host was one of only two of 10 people, 2 of 9 people, adults, who could speak English. And he kept on telling me how other people, so and so passed a comment, you know, Yevgeny passed a comment, Ivan passed a comment, Vasily passed a comment, how they kept on saying how I fit in, how well I fit in. Now, although I do the work that I do, I'm not as social a person as people assume. And those people who know me well, Suidlanders in Van der Kloor, for instance, will back me up on that. They'll say he's nothing like the way he comes across in interviews or whatever the case may be. He's not a people's person, really. And so when I find myself thrust into these situations, these sort of surprise, I don't enjoy it. I put on a false smile and I pretend to enjoy it, but I don't. Whereas, I tell you what, I was like a duck in water on Thursday night. The people are just so easy to, I don't know, airs and graces, nothing. It's just ordinary. And these people are rolling in dough. I mean, my hosts are blooming successful people. You would think that they would have some vanity and conceit, as wealthy people, not always, but often do. As down to earth as anything. We had security service people. I probably shouldn't say too much. We had millionaires. I saw on that day more gospel truth. I hope so. Anyway, I can't remember ever seeing altogether any comparative number. Maybach Mercedes, S Series, the flagship class of Mercedes, AMG Mercedes, Geländewagens, than I've ever seen in my life. Maybach S Series, Geländewagen, AMG, incredible, absolutely. And in that estate in which I found myself at this welcoming braai, and it was a braai that my host has been to South Africa, has visited South Africa, and he knows about our obsession with braaiing. So it was in honor of me that they cooked outside. They braaied. I tell you what, I was among people with big money, all of them speaking a different language. I could have been the most uncomfortable person in the world, and I wasn't. I just felt like I was a duck in water. I just sat there and listened to them babble in the background, and from time to time they would explain something to me, and for the rest, I just wallowed in it, quite honestly. And that, I think, sums up what I've subsequently experienced, namely that communication is difficult, that it's not easy. It's really not easy. But at the end of the day, do we like Russia or do we not like Russia? Goodness gracious me, if I was 25 years, the opportunities here, the pleasantness of the people, the wide open spaces, the prices, the affordability of it. So this has been a very long video now. You've listened to me waffle for 17 minutes solid. I apologize for that, but yeah, Russia so far is holding steady with a very firm 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's quite an exceptional place, quite a marvelous place. This is really just an appendix, and that's about food prices in Russia. I did mention to you that the accommodation is not as cheap as one would have hoped. Not by a long chalk. I mean, a few years ago in the USA, you could get a room in a Motel 6 for $40. Andre Kutsia and I tried in every place that we stopped to aim for that $40 mark, and We usually missed, but we usually missed by very little. $40 a person a night, and I'm paying $80 at the moment. And my host is telling me that it's difficult to find anything better than that. So that's a bit disappointing. But just on the subject of sanctions, I have been into a few shops now, and I'm buying food every day. I buy food and I make sandwiches in the hotel, whatever you call it. It's called Hotel Freya. Hotel Freya, Freya. And as I mentioned to you, I didn't say this exactly, but you know how Ursula von der Leyen said a few years ago that the European Union sanctions, it's now in the 15th package, is the most recent one, are so effective that Russia is resorting to looting, plundering washing machines of the citizenry for chips, semiconductor chips, to use for airplanes and missiles and so on. And that Russia is struggling under the sanctions. Let me tell you that is the biggest load of rubbish. There's one thing about the West. Our elites, the fraternal organizations, and the ethno-religious organizations that rule over us can lie. Satan is certainly their father, the father of lies. We know a thing or two about lying, about weapons of mass destruction, the Gulf of Tonkin incident, and we just fed lies. And 2020 and 2021 epitomized that. But I'm not sure that any of the lies by which we've been misled since forever match that lie that these guys are hamstrung, that the sanctions are preventing them from doing anything because they're driving around in motor vehicles that cost about $1 billion each, like I've never seen in my life. By contrast, you go into the shops and you think, well, a little bit high, people battling here, can't import anything. What a load of rubbish. There's nothing that they don't have. If you want real Coca-Cola, there is real Coca-Cola, which is sanctioned. There's nothing that's not here, and the prices are low. The other day, I bought a half a loaf of rye bread, caviar, just because it was cheap, not because it was caviar. I mean, yes, because it was caviar, but the point was, when caviar costs less than pilchards in South Africa, you buy caviar and you try it out for the first time. Why not? The pink caviar, not the fancy black one. And a cheese and a pate foie gras, liver pate, and a Coke Zero and a butter and biltong. It's like American beef jerky. It's rubbish compared to South African biltong. There's nowhere in the world that does biltong the way we do. And even they will admit that. Foreigners who think that, try this jerky, it's really nice. You try it. Just, no offense. I don't want to offend you, but come to South Africa. They come to South Africa, they eat real, and they agree that I've never had, of the close to 100 guests that I've brought to Suidlanders over the past 7 years from overseas, past 8 years. I've never had one tell me that biltong was not miles better than anything like it. Anyway, so this beef jerky, and there was something else, I can't think what it was, and it was under $10. In the USA, that would have cost me $20 in the shade, and in South Africa, probably call it about $15. I'm trying to keep things consistent. So yeah, that's just a little appendix. I'll try to make a video. Arnold might find some sources, but it's just to make the point. One of the first impressions that we have, and which I overlooked or neglected to mention in the previous spiel, the previous letter from Russia, was this particular thing of how people are struggling, how the society is struggling under the weight of sanctions following the special military operation, how it's too rough for words. They can't manufacture missiles anymore because they don't have enough computer chips, and they're plundering washing machines, and inflation is going through the roof. If this is their idea of high inflation, they should expect what do you call this thing? An immigration application from me very soon. This is the kind of inflation that I can live with. By contrast, inflation in the USA, I've said this in other videos, so I won't labor the point. is really, really scary. We were in the USA in 2019. We were invited to give a couple of keynote after dinner speeches to the biggest conservative conferences in the USA, true conservative conferences, I should. And then COVID, we had the pandemic, and with clot shots, you couldn't fly unless you had a jab. And we returned to the USA in September 2023, almost immediately, within a few weeks of them lifting the travel restrictions. And the difference in prices between 2019 and 2023 was scary. I want to tell you that, at the risk of exaggerating, that there must have been, if not 100% inflation. In other words, if the price of a hamburger and a Coke and ordinary stuff, a pair of house shoes, as I'm wearing now, which is roughly the equivalent of a pair of slippers, if those things had not gone up by almost 100%, then I don't know. Yeah, I could eat food here for a month for less than it costs me to feed my Belgian Malinois Judith. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope that this has been an encouraging story, and it's shed some light, a little bit of a true or more honest reflection of Russia than we're getting in the Western mainstream media. It's a delightful place. People are delightful. It's clean. It's pretty. Everything works fantastically. The service is good. And this is not a society that's buckling. They really, really, really lied to us. Okie dokes, everybody. Goodbye, and God bless all of you.